Hello, Liverpool fans. Welcome to the Liverpool Report, your go-to source for the latest news, match updates, and transfer stories straight from Anfield. Don't miss out on any of the action. Hit that subscribe button now and stay in the loop with all things Reds. You cannot play football if you're not ready to lose. In many ways, those words uttered by Jurgen Klopp in episode 1 of Doubters to Believers Liverpool FC Klopp's era sum up the man and the manager. A figure adored and followed into the trenches by those devoted to him, but one who perhaps didn't win as often as he should have done. 9 months on from Klopp and Liverpool parting ways, a separation that felt barely fathomable at the time, as millions of people around the world lost a spiritual leader. We've learned that you don't always need to be as close to the edge as Klopp would go to taste victory, as arneslot has proven. However, the soon-to-be Premier League champion will be the first to tell you that he is benefiting from the work that Klopp put in, not just in rebuilding a squad, but in repairing a club. Doubters to Believers, the new 4-part documentary from Amazon Prime Video, which is released in its entirety on Friday, isn't really what it set out to be. When Klopp shocked the world and announced the 4-month run-up to him leaving in January last year, it was hoped that the cameras would be there to capture every leg of a glorious victory lap, with a quadruple still possible. Until it wasn't. Not that the documentary shies away from the pain. As well as the 4-3 FA Cup defeat at Manchester United, there's the misery of the 3-0 home loss to Atalanta, seen through the eyes of Harvey-Elliott's demanding dad Scott. The 1-0 Anfield defeat to Crystal Palace, with a watery-eyed curtisjones who missed a sitter, and a Merseyside derby defeat at Goodison Park, complete with a family of Evertonians dancing around their living room. Klopp's reflections on that nightmare 13-day run in April last year are genuinely moving, as we see the great motivator realize that he could no longer motivate. I couldn't. For whatever reason, I still don't know. Create the atmosphere where the boys wouldn't feel the pressure, he says. And it is at that moment that you realize he really did run out of energy. But what an energy it was for 23 years in management. As the documentary skips back and forth in time, we go through a life not so much in the dugout, but stalking the touchline in front of it, as Klopp goes from Mainz's tall, awkward-looking centre-forward, who was a natural in front of the camera, appearing on game shows and explaining disappointing defeats, to becoming the boss through an act of quite extraordinary player power from a squad devoted to him. Adapting his own style of aggression from playing to managing, I know how people see me on the sideline, but that's a problem with my face. Klopp transforms the fortunes of Mainz before going on to success with Dortmund, and then arriving at a Liverpool that are drifting, dallying, and losing 6-1 to Stoke. The Doubters to Believers speech comes in the introductory press conference, as does the promise of a title in 4 seasons. And while it is easy to remember those now because they were statements which came true, it is somewhat startling to recall the context in which this charismatic figure was making them. We see a Klopp who was deeply unimpressed with the Anfield dressing rooms, and a figure who was mocked and criticised in his early months at the club, with radio phone-ins fielding calls to sack him. The infamous celebration in front of the Kop after the draw with West Brom embarrassing, says Adam Lallana, gets an airing too, but then gradually things begin to change for the better. After he turned up at the academy on his first day in the job to cast an eye over promising youngsters to promote, just as he had with Mario Götze at Dortmund, Klopp's trust in youth takes centre stage as a key theme. Trent Alexander-Arnold is of course the jewel in the crown from the off, and we hear from him Elliott, Jayden Danns, Connor Bradley and Jones, who was not the nicest kid on the planet when coming through the ranks according to his manager, but now comes across as hugely thoughtful and likeable. The key victories and defeats are all covered along with the relevant talking heads as we progress through the Klopp era, with little new information added to them bar a 5 AM singing session post-Kiev Champions League final defeat. But anyone hoping for a fly-on-the-wall experience in Liverpool's inner sanctums might be left disappointed. We see Pep Lijnders hold a video session with Darwin Núñez, urging the Uruguayan to believe in himself more. We get to see the wholesome joy of Dan's, then 18, entering the dressing room as a conquering hero after his FA Cup brace against Southampton, and we get Klopp's final dressing room speech to his players, urging them to go on and achieve everything they can. And almost 10 years on from his appointment, what comes across from doubters to believers is the clear evidence that he left behind a club, a city and a fan base transformed for the better, as well as players inspired by what they could do and empowered to try and achieve it. Virgil van Dijk is backing Darwin Núñez to make a big impact in Liverpool's remaining games, but the Liverpool captain has reiterated Arne Slot Red's boss. Slot questioned Núñez's work ethic after his latest shocking miss against Aston Villa a week ago, and then decided to keep the Uruguay international on the bench against Manchester City on Sunday. But Núñez was back in action during Wednesday's win against Newcastle, a dress rehearsal of next month's EFL Cup final at Wembley. And Van Dijk said of players having to put top effort in at all times, that is the bare minimum that has been asked of the whole squad from day one. But that is the bare minimum anyway for playing for Liverpool. It was more down to him, and it is still down to him, but I think he showed a great reaction today in his work rate and coming on. That should be the minimum, and he knows it. Everyone has a big role to play. I mentioned it last week after Aston Villa. We are all in this together, and we need everyone. He is a big part of the team as well, and when he comes on, he has to make a positive impact. We have to keep that going. Beating Newcastle moved Liverpool 13 points clear of Arsenal, who were unable to find a way past Nottingham Forest at the same time. But Van Dijk is adamant that Liverpool are not looking towards a title party yet. The captain added, "There is no almost there. There are 10 more games to go for us, and nothing is decided. Until anything is decided, we don't get carried away whatsoever. I'm a bit of a boring guy because I always keep saying on to the next, and keep calm. You have to enjoy winning games, but not for too long because we play almost every 3 days. That is the only thing we have to do, prepare for the next." It was an intense 15 days with lots of intense games, and we came out of it pretty well. We put ourselves in a very good position, but it doesn't mean anything is done yet. There is no space for complacency. Liverpool have the weekend off before travelling to Paris Saint-Germain for the first leg of their Champions League round of 16 tie next Wednesday. Liverpool extended their Premier League advantage to 13 points in midweek, leaving Arsenal's title challenge hanging by a thread. Arne Slot's Reds beat Newcastle on Wednesday night, while Arsenal were held to a goalless draw at Nottingham Forest. By the time the two teams meet at Anfield in May, it could all be over. Liverpool have played 1 game more, thanks to their involvement in March's Carabao Cup final. By the end of that month, though, both will be on level footing. If the gap between the sides grows in the coming weeks, Liverpool could be champions by the end of the 5-game run. Here's what is on the horizon for Liverpool and Arsenal, either side of the international break. Liverpool's cup final means they play just once before the international break. That game is against bottom of the league Southampton, though things get a bit more challenging from April onwards. The second Merseyside derby of the season against Everton H will be the first with Arne Slot back in the dugout after he serves the second match of his touchline ban. 2 London-based opponents follow, with Fulham A and West Ham H taking the Reds through to the middle of April. Their 5th game in the upcoming run sees Liverpool up against Leicester. Slot's team came from behind to beat the Foxes on Boxing Day, and Leicester may well be fighting for their lives by the time they welcome the league leaders to the King Power Stadium. After going 2 straight league games without scoring for the first time since May 2023, Arsenal will want to turn things around when they face Manchester United A on March 9th. They're also in action 7 days later with Chelsea H, their opponents on Carabao Cup final weekend. April begins with another London derby, this time against Fulham. 4 days later, Mikel Arteta will take his team north for a meeting with Everton. After that comes a 3rd home derby in the space of a month, with Brentford H visiting the Emirates Stadium. By then, they might have welcomed the likes of Bukayo Saka and Gabriel Martinelli back from injury. Despite Liverpool extending their lead, manager Arne Slot wasn't getting carried away in the immediate aftermath of the midweek win. "It is still a long way to go, 10 game, the former Feyenoord boss told TNT Sports. "In March, we only play 1 Premier League game. Then we have the cup final, of course, and an international break, and then 2 big games against Paris Saint-Germain, so we are not focused on the long term. I know, and the players know how difficult the Champions League game is going to be. They are in the same form as us, hardly lose. It is going to be a difficult task for both teams. Now the players have some days off, and then we focus on PSG more than we do on the table in the Premier League. Arteta was bitterly disappointed not to win at Nottingham Forest on Wednesday night and acknowledges the difficulties his side face, but insists he won't be giving up. "It's about what we can do," said the Gunners' boss. "It was like this a week before, 2 weeks before, 3 months ago. It's the same. That's the only thing we can control. We're going to have a real chance to do anything. Today we dropped 2 points, which is very painful again, and we have to step up.